Hello, welcome back once again. In today's video, I'll be dealing with understanding the application of deductive reasoning. So let me take you to the roadmap of my presentation. First, I'll be dealing with the concept wherein I'll discuss the meaning and purpose. Second, I will talk about the process wherein I will discuss the steps to be followed. Third, I'll be sharing with you certain examples that is designed to test the logical reasoning of the learners. And lastly, I will highlight the importance of deductive reasoning. So let us move on to the first topic, that is the concept. So here I will discuss the meaning and purpose. So the meaning and purpose of deductive reasoning is the deductive reasoning is the act of drawing logical conclusion, especially from the information provided by the writer in a given text. And the purpose of deductive reasoning is to tap their higher order thinking skill. And it is necessary for all the learners to acquire the skills because they can actually use the skill to implement it in real life situation, especially at the workplace where they have to deal with certain problems and arrive at solution that is based on logical reasoning. So having said this, I would now like to differentiate between deduction and inferencing. So deduction is the process whereby the reader identifies the information provided by the writer, which is in the form of general information, and from this information the reader has to arrive at certain logical conclusion dealing with a particular case or a special case. So deduction implies the deriving conclusions by reasoning, and it is based on generally accepted statements or facts, and it follows from general to particular. Because it follows from general to particular, therefore the information is reliable, or the logical reasoning is more reliable, the conclusion is more reliable, it is more authentic, it is more believable. So having said this, let us now move on to the difference between deduction and inference. Inference, on the other hand, as we have already dealt in my previous video, the writer provides particular information about a given situation or a given character, and the reader not only has to identify the clues provided by the writer, but also has to use his prior knowledge or his background knowledge associated with the clues provided by the writer and arrive at certain conclusions. So the conclusion arrived at by the reader is actually based on assumptions of the reader. So it may not be what is intended by the writer. So therefore, this assumption cannot be totally believed upon. So I would say that this is also reasoning, but it is with an element of probability, and it is based on generalization from known or observed facts, and it follows from particular to general. So having understood the difference, let us now move on to the next topic, that is the process, wherein I will discuss the steps to be followed. Now let's take the example of a researcher. So as a researcher, I have identified a particular problem, and in that problem I have identified a solution. My solution is based on a theory development. So once the solution has been identified, then I have to prove this solution. So for that I will have to construct my hypothesis, and on the basis of this hypothesis I have to collect data, and once I've collected data I have to test the hypothesis, and once this hypothesis is tested I have to accept or reject the hypothesis, or accept or reject the theory that I am trying to develop or I am trying to implement. So it is based from general to the particular. So this is how I use the deductive method in my research. So having said this, let us now move on to the steps in detail. So first step is the route that needs to be identified by the reader, and then look at the factual information provided by the writer, and then arrive at certain conclusions. So let us discuss this in detail. So the route could be divided into two types. The one is universal and another is particular. So universal, I have an example for you here. All passenger cars that can travel 770 miles per hour are supersonic. Particular information could be some passenger cars are supersonic. Now, the universal or the particular rule, could also have positive and negative implications. So positive implication is all passenger cars that can travel 770 miles per hour are supersonic. These are positive universal statements, and some passenger cars are supersonic. This is positive particular statement. Whereas a negative universal statement could be no commercial vehicle is supersonic, and a negative particular statement could be some commercial vehicles are not supersonic. So if you have observed carefully that universal statements we use the word all, and in particular statements we use the word some. Whereas in negative statements, in both the cases, we use the negative words no or not. So having understood this, let us now move on to the identifying the factual information. So here in a universal statement, the factual information could be Ford Crown Victoria is a passenger car that can travel 770 miles per hour. Whereas in a particular statement, the factual information could be Ford Crown Victoria is a passenger car. In a negative statement, a universal negative statement, the factual information could be semi-trailer truck is a commercial vehicle. Whereas in a negative particular statement, the factual information could be semi-trailer truck is a commercial vehicle. So in both cases, semi-trailer truck is a commercial vehicle could be the factual information. But let's arrive at conclusions. So from the given factual information, the conclusion could be in a universal positive statement, the conclusion could be Ford Crown Victoria is supersonic. Here also you might have noticed that in the particular statement, the universal statement, we have seen the word passenger cars that is being used, whereas in the last concluding statement we have not mentioned the passenger cars. So one of the best ways to arrive at conclusion, to arrive at correct conclusion, is for the learner to identify which word is used in the particular statement and which word is repeated in the factual statement. So the word that is repeated in both the statements, that cannot be the statement word that can be used as a concluding statement. So in this way, we classify them as nouns. The noun used in the universal statement and the factual statement cannot be used in the concluding statement. So in the particular statement also, we have some passenger cars are supersonic, and Ford Crown Victoria is a passenger car, that is a factual information. And so in the concluding statement, we say, so maybe Ford Crown Victoria is supersonic. So if you notice that a universal statement, we simply say that something is supersonic, or something is poisonous, or something is person is mortal. But whereas in a particular statement we use the word maybe, thereby implying that we are not very sure about the conclusion. So in a negative statement, in a negative universal statement, the concluding statement could be, so semi-trailer truck is not supersonic. Whereas in a negative particular statement, we again use the word maybe, so maybe semi-trailer truck is not supersonic. So having understood the steps, let us now move on to the examples. So here I have a simple example. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is a mortal. Now, this example is linked to all. Let us see some other examples. All footballers are fit and healthy. This is a statement that is provided to us. And the second statement, all famous sports players are footballers. Now, from these two statements, we have to identify which of the following is a logical deduction. So, I have the first sentence, all footballers are famous sports people. So we cannot say that, because we are talking about all footballers are fit and healthy and all famous sports players are footballers. So we cannot say that all footballers are famous sports people. That cannot be the logical conclusion. Similarly, all famous people are fit and healthy. That also cannot be the logical conclusion, because we are not talking about all famous people. We are talking about all famous sports players. So therefore, there is a huge lot of difference in what I'm saying. Then third statement, all famous sports players are fit and healthy. Now for this example, this particular statement, let us read the given set statements again. All footballers are fit and healthy. All famous sports players are footballers. So all famous sports players are fit and healthy. So it definitely fits into this particular conclusion. Whereas the fourth one, all fit and healthy people are footballers. No, we cannot arrive at this conclusion, because we are not talking about all fit and healthy people are footballers. We are talking about specifically sports players. Similarly, the last one, all football players are men. It is not related to that particular statement at all. So we cannot, arrive at this conclusion. So having understood this, let us move on to the second example. So here we have in a sixth form, this year 94% of students achieved A to C grades. Last year 95% of students achieved A to C grades. The school has said that its new approach to mentoring students has had a brilliant impact on student performance. Now from this particular paragraph, we have to come up with the following statements. We should identify these statements are true. So next year, students' performance will be less than this year. That we cannot conclude, because we are talking about this year, the 94% of students in this. last year 95% of students achieved this, so we cannot say that next year the student performance will be less than this year, because the school is saying that this has said that this new approach to mentoring students has had a brilliant impact on student performance. So therefore, if that is what MES is provided in the statement, so we can expect, a better performance, student performance, rather than the performance deteriorating. Then the second statement, all students taking A levels achieved A to C. No, that is not mentioned at all. So we cannot arrive at this particular conclusion. Before last year, no students achieved A to C. That also we cannot arrive at, because that it is not said that 100% of students achieve A to C grades. Okay, so we cannot arrive at such conclusions, because it will totally negate the particular statement that is provided. And before last year, less than 94% of students achieve A to C grade. Yes, we can say that, because in our sixth form this year, 94% of students achieve A to C grades. Okay, so therefore we can definitely say that before last year, less than 94% of students achieved A to C grades. And then every school has seen a rise in student performance. We cannot say this, because we are talking about a particular school over here, and we're not talking about every school. So then we cannot arrive at this particular conclusion. So having understood the use of the way to apply deductive reasoning method, let us now move on to the importance of deductive reasoning. In deductive reasoning, we can think logically, and we also arrive at meaningful decisions, especially when you are talking about the workplace, and it is a well-structured conclusion, and therefore it is very important to consider implementing deductive reasoning method in our day-to-day life. So having said this, I would like to thank all of you for your patient listening.